story, I kind of want to explain to you what postpartum psychosis is. So postpartum psychosis is a rare but severe mental health condition that can develop in women after giving birth. It is characterized by sudden onset psychotic symptoms such as delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking and speech, rapid mood swings, anxiety and paranoia, and sleep disturbances. It is also, you can have some of these symptoms, you can have all of them, you can have one, you can have two, which you will see throughout my story. Before this, I kind of thought it could be one or the other, like you had to have all of these symptoms or none of them to be experiencing psychosis. So you're probably wondering, how the hell did you end up in psychosis? So I had a baby, of course, and everything honestly was fine. My biggest fear with becoming a mother was actually postpartum depression. I thought that I was going to have postpartum depression. Depression kind of runs in my family, so I just thought, okay, like, that's something that I'm gonna have. And that actually wasn't the case, and things were actually pretty fine up until a while. Then one night actually, I had gotten a news notification that Russia had attacked Ukraine, and I just started, something about that was very triggering to me. Like, I had just not too long ago had a baby, and I just started thinking, like, imagine if that happened here, if another country attacked us, and that was kind of the catalyst for my psychosis. It was the one event that kind of messed up my mental. I remember reading that, and it just sparked all of these other thoughts in my head about, like, war and what I would do in that situation. And then I started thinking about the Ukrainian people and like what they were living in, and kind of branched off the thoughts. Like, I thought, okay, if Russia can attack Ukraine, then they can certainly attack the United States. I started thinking, like, my husband will be drafted, I will be left alone with our new baby, and that is where, now looking back, the misconception that, like, oh my goodness, women who go through psychosis postpartum, they only want to harm their child. No, in my case in particular, my main focus was, oh my goodness, I have to do everything in my power to stay alive, to protect my baby. Like, there's nobody on this earth who will be able to protect my baby like I can. And that is just where my mind went. I remember after this happened, I was laying in bed just so scared. I don't really, at that time, I didn't really know of what. I just felt like something was going to happen, something bad was going to happen, and yeah, I remember laying in bed and thinking, I am so terrified in this moment, but if I say something to my husband, who was literally laying next to me, I'm going to have a psychotic break, and he will have to have me committed to some kind of mental institution. And I just remember that night laying down, scared and praying, like, breaking out between the United States. They don't call it psychosis for no reason. It is delusions. There was nothing in the news at the time pointing that the United States would go to war. I just thought, like I said, if Russia could attack Ukraine, they can certainly attack the United States. And these thoughts just started running through my mind. Now, at this time, we were getting ready to put our house on the market and sell our house, and we were moving, and I thought in my mind, if I can just make it till we move, we're gonna move into this new house, I'm gonna have a new beginning, my mental health will get better. It didn't. Newsflash. And that was like a couple months within each other. Now, mind you, I'm still having this same thought, the same thoughts I would think about every single day. I do want to kind of say I was stuck in this psychosis for almost 2 years, a little shy of 2 years. And another misconception about psychosis or postpartum psychosis is that people do not realize that they are in psychosis. I 100% understood what was happening. I 100% understood. I was having these intrusive thoughts that were not real, that, I knew that I was in psychosis. Well, at the end, I knew I was in psychosis. In the beginning, in the middle, I actually thought that I was just having postpartum anxiety. So, but a lot of people think that you can, when you're in psychosis, you don't understand that you are. Some people don't, but some people very much do, and I was one of those people. Like I said, had the same every day, all day long. My mind was, we're going to war, we're gonna be in war, my husband's gonna be drafted, my dad, my brother, everyone I love is gonna be drafted, I'm gonna be stuck alone with my baby, and I need to protect my baby. I need to do something bad's gonna happen. I need to protect my baby. So, mind you, those are the thoughts that I'm having all day long, every single day. So we end up moving, and lo and behold, my mental health does not get better. I thought just magically, somehow, moving was gonna make everything better, and it didn't. And so by this time, I'm kind of stuck in this mental space for, I want to say 3 months, 4 months. And I know I am. And every time, so we had moved, but my son was still going to middle school in a different district, so my husband had to drive maybe 15-20 minutes away to take my son to school for the rest of the school year. Every time that I was separated from my husband, I was like, that's it, this is the end, something bad is going to happen in this moment. And also too, at the same time, so I had entered postpartum psychosis. I had thought, okay, something bad's gonna happen, we're gonna go to war, blah 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 blah. At the same time, I was on Facebook just scrolling, trying to cleanse my mind, and I could remember reading some local news article, and somebody was like, oh, these are signs of the end times, the Lord's coming back, the world's gonna end. Yeah, exactly what I needed to see. Exactly. lot of things that changed every single day. I just had the same thoughts over and over and over again from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep. It was the same thoughts that I was gonna be harmed, my husband was gonna die, or be drafted, and no one would be able to take care of our daughter. And honestly, this went on for months and months and months and months. My mental health actually got to a point where I was just seeing so much stuff about war and Russia, Ukraine, that I actually could not. I stopped using TikTok for like a year. I could not have anybody send me a TikTok. I could not open TikTok because it was like every video I was getting was about war. And it was very triggering to me because that was my delusion. Like, that was gonna happen to me. So for a while I only could watch Instagram reels. Like, my husband and I would send like funny Instagram reels back and forth. And yeah, I could not read the news. The news was also a very big trigger for me. I did not want to see anything about anything. Like, I could not read any bad news. This was also kind of around the time of the Chinese spy balloons. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but there was China had some kind of like weather balloons or something in orbit. That was also very triggering for me at the time because, hello, I told you my delusion. So I could not read the news. I could not watch the news. Anytime there was like a headline revolving around war, my husband would have to kind of ask me if I was okay to talk about it, and a lot of the time I would say no because it was just so triggering. Like I said, all day long, all day, I just had these same thoughts all day. Like, I would not think about anything else. Like, my life was on autopilot. I was taking care of my baby, I was cooking, I was cleaning, but I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just thinking about the same thing all day long. And it did get to a point, like I said, I was very aware of what I was going through. I was very aware of like what I was thinking and feeling wasn't normal, and I knew that. So I did speak. I went to the doctor. I was like, I'm having these thoughts. I cannot make them stop. I cannot think about anything else. And I did get on anxiety medication. It did not work, but we will talk about that more. And there was a point where almost every day my parents would come over. My daughter was so young, and I just, to help my anxiety, to help my delusions, I needed to be surrounded by other people. My father-in-law, my husband's stepfather, is a history teacher, and he was a high school history teacher. He still was teaching at the time, but has since retired. But being with him was honestly the only thing that kind of calmed my delusions, because I literally would physically look at him and talk to him, and I was like, okay, this man is a history teacher. He studies war. He teaches it to students. If he is not freaking out about this, if he is not concerned, then I think that I will be okay. And that was like the rational part of my brain working against the irrational part of my brain. But so when we would go over to my in-laws' house, I would feel safe if if my parents came over to our house, I would feel safe. There would just be times when I would have to, I physically, like, would, whatever I was doing, stop what I was doing, and go to my husband, and I would just lean on him, and he would wrap his arms around me, and that was kind of like my grounding moment, where I was like, everything is fine. In this moment, I'm safe. Nothing bad is going to happen. Nothing bad is happening. Because like at the time, there was just so much going on. So there was the war, there was monkeypox outbreak, there was the weather balloon. I also remember reading a TMZ article had came through my phone, like a notification, and it was like one of the US generals saying by 2025 we will fully be going to war. And I was just like, of course. And then I was reading at the time that the army recruiting number was low. So in my mind, this was feeding my delusion that my husband was gonna get drafted. Like I said, I laugh now because I've came out the other side, but I just remember how I felt in that moment. Like there was nothing that anybody could say, there was nothing anybody could do that could convince me that I was safe. Now, also during this time, like I said, I was very aware of like the delusional thoughts that I was having. So also during this time, I went to therapy. This is a disclaimer to never use BetterHelp. I started therapy through BetterHelp. I thought, okay, if I could speak to somebody who I wasn't related to or who didn't really know me, they could help me come out of this spiral of like the continuous thoughts, because that was the most exhausting part. Was like every day my husband had to convince me that nothing was going to happen, nothing was happening, everything was fine, but a part of my brain was just stuck on this loop of like the same thought all day long. So I thought, okay, I get help, speak to someone who I'm not related to, who I have no ties to. That's gonna sever the cord, that's gonna cut the thoughts. Well, BetterHelp sucks because I got matched with like a therapist, and every single week that we were supposed to meet, she always had some kind of camera difficulty, so we only could speak through typing, like through text, and that in that moment just wasn't good enough for me. I needed to speak to someone like on Zoom, face to face, and I truly believe that if that therapist, if we had been able to connect and talk face to face, that would have helped me exit my psychosis sooner. But that just wasn't the case, and I struggled for almost 2 years. Another kind of part of my psychosis that I went through was thinking I could pray all of the negative things that were happening. I could pray them away. I grew up very religious, and so that wasn't anything new, but I kind of entered a deeper religious psychosis at the same time. Every night I prayed the same exact prayer, word for word, and I prayed over Ukraine, I prayed over any other conflicts that were happening at the moment, and I just thought, okay, if I pray this prayer every single night without fail, that God will answer my prayers before. And he's very rational. He's very educated. He just understands everything. I just leaned on him so heavily. Like, honestly, he saved me. Like, I know I am the biggest man hater, but I have a soft spot for my husband. He truly, truly saved my life because I was delusional. Like, I just could not be rationed with. I could not grasp the fact that, like, everything was okay. I mean, besides a country being in the middle of, like, a war, but for me, as a person, I was okay. Like, nothing bad was happening. There was no impending doom. But he really stuck by my side, and, like, I'm just, honestly, if I did not have him, I would not be here with you today, because the intrusive cycle thoughts honestly got so bad, because I knew I was having delusions. I knew I was having delusional thoughts. I could not stop them. It just got to a point where I would go to bed, wake up, and just have the same thoughts. Oh yeah, another delusion that I had was that someone was going to open my daughter's window and take her out of her room in the middle of the night. So I researched the typical time that break-ins or burglaries or crime happened, and I stayed up at night until that hour passed, because I was just so convinced that somebody knew that I had just had, or somebody knew that I had a baby, and they were going to not break down the door, not do anything else but open her window and take her. So, again, I laugh now because it just was a crazy time for me. So that was another delusion that I had. So like I said, I got on medication. I spoke to a therapist. I did CBT therapy. I was trying to ground myself. There just really was nothing that was working, and I was just getting to the point of mental exhaustion every night. I was going to bed past 2 a.m. Mind you, I'm still kind of waking up once or twice a night for nighttime feedings with my daughter. My husband had his shift. We ended up doing a shift system, so I got the overnight shift since he was working, or he still is, but he was working at the time. So I was doing the overnight shift because I needed to stay awake to make sure that our windows didn't get broken and nobody stole my baby. I also thought that I was, like, doing a really good job of, like, hiding my delusional self, but my husband, like, found me out pretty quickly. He knew something was wrong, and for a really long time, I did not want to explain to him what was going on, because I knew I was having delusional thoughts. I just told him I felt anxious, because I did, obviously, but it was also a lot more than that. But he just really worked with me and helped me, and I did get suicidal towards the end of through the end of, like, my psychosis, because I was just so tired of, every day was like Groundhog's Day for me. It was the same thoughts all day long, same feelings, same everything, and I just was tired of it, and I just was like, you know what, life would be so much easier if I just wasn't here, if my life just ceased to exist. There also, like I said, I could not watch the news, or I could not read the news, and there was somebody close to me who I said, hey, like, please do not send me news articles, do not, just don't send me anything news related, and I didn't really explain why, but I had put that boundary there that, like, hey, researching anything. I was like, what can I do to make this stop? I started taking magnesium. I thought, okay, maybe my magnesium's low. Like, I was taking the prescription medications and it just wasn't helping. Like I said, I started researching what helps with anxiety because I thought I was just having anxiety. So I started taking magnesium and ashwagandha. Now, I'm not saying that this healed me. I don't know what healed me, honestly. I think it was like a combination of things because the anxiety medication was not working. So I stopped taking it, which I also don't recommend, but it wasn't like a medication that you had to be weaned off of. But the medication was not working out, and I was like, I need something else. So I started taking magnesium glycinate, and I started taking ashwagandha. And I told myself, I said, something's got to give. Like, something just has to help me. So that's when I entered my reading era. I entered my YouTube ASMR era. I was like, I have to start throwing myself into things to like think about something else. And I just remember one day I was like, I'm not thinking about this anymore. I cannot put any more energy into these thoughts. And like, literally, that was it. And I think too, like, taking the magnesium, taking the ashwagandha, like doing other things, because mind you, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so literally there was no seeing other people, there was no going to work, there was no commute. Like, it was just the same thing every single day. But one day I just went to bed and I woke up and like I didn't have my delusional thoughts anymore. Like, it's a lot more than that. Like I said, I was taking a concoction of different supplements and vitamins and hoping that they would help. But I just remember, like, one day I was like, oh my god, like, I haven't thought about dying, I haven't thought about war, I haven't thought about my husband being drafted. And like, it was just like that. It just ended. And I remember for a very long time I was so scared to think about the cycle that I was in, because I was like, oh my god, if I think about what I just spent almost 2 years thinking about the same thing. I was like, if I think about that, I'm gonna get sucked right back into that mind space of being scared. So I just I put it out of my mind. And even my husband, I got back on TikTok, I started watching the news again, I started reading the news, and my husband was like, you're doing so much better. And I was like, yeah, like I'm not thinking about anything anymore. Like, and I just kept taking magnesium, I kept taking the ashwagandha. I was so scared that if I acknowledged what I went through, that I would end up back in that cycle. And several months had passed, and I think I was on Reddit, and I read a story that someone had posted about being in postpartum psychosis, and I shit you not, like, the story was identical to what I had just went through. And then I felt like my mental health was strong enough. I started to research postpartum psychosis, and I figured out, I spoke to someone, and I was like, bitch, I just went through postpartum psychosis, like a 2-year-long stint of the same delusion. Now I will say that I did not have hallucinations. I just had absolute delusion. I had mood swings. Some days were better than others, but I always was stuck thinking the same thing, like having the same delusion. But some days I could like go out, I could go places, days I couldn't. Like, I didn't go to the gas station for like a year. I just couldn't. My husband did all of that for me. And afterwards I realized, like, oh my god, I hadn't stepped foot in a gas station in like a year, over a year. So yeah, I had the disorganized thinking, I had the mood swings, I had the delusions, I had the absolute terrible insomnia. That was another thing. I had to order in the midst. I had to order sleeping pills off of Amazon because I just could not go to sleep. I was scared. I had insane paranoia of like something was going to happen. I mean, that is the grand scheme of things, of like, I was convinced something very bad was going to happen that was going to separate me from my baby. That's it. It was just a very scary time, and I'm just thankful that I came out on the other side. I'm thankful I did not take my life, because I'm telling you, I was very, very close, because my mind was fighting itself, and it's like I could physically feel it. I know I've said it before, but I'm just thankful for my husband. Like, that's kind of crazy to have to go through, like, somebody who knows that they're delusional, and not in like a funny sense, but in an actual literal sense. And he didn't, like, he never took anything out on me. He never held anything against me. He always supported me. Like, that cannot be easy. Like, we even talked about it like months ago. We kind of like dove into like what was wrong with me, and I explained how I felt, and he explained how he felt, and he was scared that I was gonna kill myself. He told me he felt like he was on suicide watch with me 24/7, and I had no idea, because I was going through my own things. But he's so gracious. Like, he's never held that against me ever. He never looked down on me. He never thought that like I was a bad mom or a bad mother. I remember while I was in the midst of my psychosis, he just always told me what an amazing mom I was, what a great wife, what an amazing mother. And you know, at the time I was just like, oh, like, okay, thank you. But looking back, like, wow, thank you so much. Like, my husband really like saved my life. And this is, you know, I wanted to share this story because I when I was going through this, I wish I would have heard a story about somebody who was going through something like this. Like, I wish it would have presented itself. I wish that the hospital or the doctor that I visited had shared more about postpartum psychosis and not just postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, because I really do feel like more people go through it and don't know, until we hear like these insane stories of mothers or women or people who have given birth doing these extreme things. And it kind of scares you, because I do remember reading about postpartum psychosis, and at the same time there was a new mom who had just killed all her kids, and I was like, whoa, there's no way that could be me, because bitch, I don't want to kill my kids. But it was me in just a very different font, and I want to break that stigma of what is placed on people who give birth. You know, that's my story. It's true. It's what I lived. It's what I experienced. It was not easy at all, but it's also a testament to advocate for yourself, to reach out, to cut off the things that you need to cut off, to speak to the people that you need to speak to. It's also kind of a testament to women that it's not anxiety, you know, it's something else. To advocate for yourself, to make sure you have people on your team who will advocate for you, who will stick by you. said, I was stuck in psychosis for almost 2 years. It's been several years now. It's been almost 2 years that I've been out of it, so it was scary. It is scary, but you know, there's help. It's not forever. If one thing doesn't work for you, keep trying, and if this is you, please reach out. But if you're on the outside looking in, please just be there for people. Be there if you know women or someone who's giving birth, who's given birth. Keep your eye out, look out, do your research, keep your eye out on that person. Yeah, this was just my story. I'm glad that I'm able to be here to share it with you. I'm so thankful for like this platform and having this channel. Having this channel really did help me in the tail end of my psychosis, kind of get out of it. I had something to dedicate my time to that like wasn't my baby, you know what I mean? So in a different sense, this channel has been my baby. Reading, this channel, my husband have collectively all saved my life. Like I thank you.